We're joined now by a member of the Homeland Security Committee, Republican Congressman McCaul of Texas. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. I do want to note you have heralded Tom Homan's model in Minneapolis since he has taken over leadership there from Gregory Bovino. But what policy changes are you looking for specifically to change when it comes to these immigration operations?
Well, I think the way Tom Homan has come in as a consummate professional. Remember, I was chairman of this committee, but also a federal prosecutor after 9/11, getting known or suspected terrorists out of the country using ICE, which, by the way, I authorized into law, overwhelmingly bipartisan. So where are we today after the 10 to 12 million came in illegally, the aggravated felons? What Homan's trying to do is restore ICE's core mission of these strategic law enforcement operations. And that's where it needs to be. I think these roving patrols, with Mr. Agent Bovino coming in with roving patrols, those should be limited to areas around the border, not in the major cities in the United States. The other problem was it's a sanctuary city, so that ICE detainers were not honored by the locals, so they couldn't pick them up out of the prisons. Now Tom Homan is restoring that process. He's also working with state and locals to do the crowd control that, quite frankly, Brianna, ICE and CBP are just not trained to handle crowd control situations. To answer your question specifically, the Border Patrol cameras now are being put back on the agents. And I think, again, the state and local cooperation is very important here. Otherwise, you're at war with the state and locals. And we saw what happened. It was not working well. We need to de-escalate the situation.
It is noteworthy that Gregory Bovino and Tom Homan, they're operating under the same leadership structure, right? And that leads me to this question, because Bovino was empowered by DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. Even as things deteriorated rapidly, that continued for some time. She has misrepresented what we have seen on video. And I wonder if you think she needs to go.
That's a president's decision. I'm very pleased.
Then let me, do you have questions about her leadership? Because that is an oversight role of Congress. Do you have questions about her leadership?
I just have questions about putting Agent Bovino in charge of this operation. I think Tom Homan should have been in charge of this from day one. He's showing how you can do this as a professional and without theatrics. So that's the last thing we need, is someone to bring theatrics into all this. Bovino is very good at that, but that's not what the nation, most Americans agree with removing criminal aliens. Prior administration let a lot of aggravated felons in. They're okay with that. What they're not okay with is harassment of the public at large, the way these roving patrols were done. That called into question a lot of it. We need to get back to the core mission of ICE. And not doing these theatrics. And so I'm glad the president's going with Mr. Homan. I think it's really a model for the nation. This is how we ought to be doing it across the country now.
The Trump administration, and this is actually even by Pam Bondi, this idea of getting sensitive voter registration information has even been linked in Minnesota to immigration operations there. But more broadly, from a number of states, the Trump administration wants this sensitive data, this sensitive voter registration data. Your state of Texas is actually one of 24 states that is using a federal database that was overhauled last year to try to verify voter citizenship. And election officials across your state of Texas have actually identified many citizens who have been flagged in error there. Do you have any concerns about that affecting the vote and about American citizens being disenfranchised this fall?
Well, first of all, law enforcement operations should never be targeted in terms of how one person votes or party affiliation. I do think there's a concern about like voter ID. That's why the Congress were voting on the SAVE Act this week, to ensure that if someone is registered to vote, they're a U.S. citizen, as required by law. The problem, it hasn't been effectuated in all states. But you never use law enforcement for political purposes, at least in my tenure at the DOJ. That would be very much against tradition.
I mean, you have a passport, but a lot of people, I'm assuming you have a passport. A lot of people do not, right? They don't readily.
Official and unofficial, yeah.
Exactly, right? You have got all the passports, but a lot of people don't have that or their birth certificate readily available, which is part of the issue, as you're well aware with the SAVE Act. Do you have concern, though? I mean, you're looking at your state of Texas, where in Denton County, 84 potential non-citizens were identified. In the case of 14, it turned out to be an error on the part of them being put in a system they never asked to be put in. They were very clear about their citizenship status. And then there were actually more than a dozen people who provided documents that established their citizenship, and they remained on the rolls. But there's still dozens of people who haven't been reached, and they've had their registrations canceled. Some of them, you know, perhaps wrongly. Is that raising concerns for you about whether this is actually a good idea to seek this registration information and do with it what the administration wants to do with it?
Well, you know, how it's implemented, I don't. All I can tell you is that the law does require, to vote in the United States, you have to be here legally and you have to be a U.S. citizen. And so I think, how do you implement and enforce that law? You know, we have the Real ID Act in my state of Texas, and it's linked to your driver's license. You have to have some identification to be able to vote, not just in person, but by absentee ballot. And I think one of the concerns is that people are voting, you know, in this country illegally who don't comply with federal law. And so this puts the onus on the states to basically effectuate what is required by federal law, and that is identify who's here legally and who's not, who's a U.S. citizen, who is not, and who can be allowed to vote.